Hi, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today is a very special episode. So you'll notice for those of you that are watching this event live, there's a lot of people on the show, and this does not normally happen. Our interview format is normally one-on-one, and we're doing deep dives into the stories, the missions, and the backgrounds of our guests. Well, today we have multiple guests, and we're having a very special celebration. So we are releasing the 6th volume of our best-selling Mission Matters Business Leader book series. And I have a couple of the authors, or I should say more than a few of the authors on the line today. And we're going to go through one at a time, and we'll get into some of the content from the authors, their participation, what they wrote about, and more importantly, the mission behind what they're trying to convey. Like, what's their message? What gets them fired up to go out into the marketplace and to make a difference, right, in the world? So I'm excited to have the authors on the line today. And first thing first, I'd say is first, I just want to congratulate everyone on the success and on the new release. So let's do a little clap there.
Bravo.
Come on, and here we go. Here go the books. I know. I held them out in the when we were in the green room and kind of warming up here, and everybody's like, "Where's my book?" I'm like, "Okay, well, these are the first proofs. Don't worry, yours are on the way. So more to come there." But just to get us kicked off, we'll go around and just introduce all the authors. And again, this is the live version that you're either watching or listening to right now. And we'll have another version that comes out on the website. And we're also going to, just for the listeners, so if you're not subscribed, if you haven't been following the show for a long time, definitely hit that subscribe button, because we're actually going to be doing a deep dive series with all of the authors that you'll be watching today, and then more coming up on another series. So stay tuned for that. But just to get us started, I'll say ladies first on this one. Demetra, if you want to maybe introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Demetra Bakas. I am the founder of Madison Street Search. We're a boutique finance and accounting firm based in Chicago, but super honored and excited to even be a part of this group with my fellow authors. So it's exciting to kind of hear everyone's stories and be rubbing shoulders with all these other successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah, this is excited to have you here. Stephanie, please.
It's only been 2 years of using virtual technology.
Oh, good.
Unmute button. I'm Stephanie Lim. I'm co-founder and senior partner of Groundswell Health. We are a healthcare strategic communications and marketing firm based in Austin. All y'all California people, y'all can stay there. We don't need any more of you moving here. Thanks. We're all set. And I too, I'm thrilled to bits to be a part of this group, and I second Demetra's comments and can't wait to hear about everybody's chapters.
Oh, come on, Stephanie. Don't pick on the Californians. I'm from Michigan, but I'm looking at Texas next, just saying.
Of course you are.
This isn't a political show, though. We're not going to do that one. All right, so moving on over to the guys. I guess I'll just start top right. Jim, please. Speaking of California, Jim.
Yes, here in Newport, where it's going to be 95 degrees today, so a little warm. I'm Jim Downs. I'm the founder of Blueprint CFO. We're a fractional CFO and outsourced accounting firm, and we work with entrepreneurial companies to make accounting future-focused so that they can learn from the past and do better in the future. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Awesome, Jim. And Jim, I know you've been on the show before, and great to have you back, and looking forward to our next episode we'll do together as well when we do get a chance to do a deep dive into your writing. So welcome back. Arnold, come on. How you doing, Arnold?
Good. Glad to be here. Arnold Volker. I'm from up in Minnesota. We got 10 inches of snow again, so it's kind of getting sick of winter up here. But business owner, own a manufacturing company, very passionate about helping people, and my focus has kind of been a new thing that I'm working on, Inventor U. So I'm doing some consulting in the chapters about how youth can affect our lives as far as inventing things. So
It's awesome. And I'll say this for the audience and for the authors that are on the line. So Arnold's been pretty active in our clubhouse that we meet every Thursday. Authors are welcome, of course, and all the listeners, just to let you know, if you go to the Mission Matters Club on Clubhouse, every Thursday we host different events and different speakers. Arnold's been pretty active on that with his and talking about Inventor U. And I can say personally, every time I hear him talk, I'm like, man, I want an idea. Like, what am I going to invent? I just get that little, Arnold, I might have to keep you from talking to Jeff too much though, because you start giving Jeff some ideas on the inventions. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Scott. Please introduce yourself.
Perfect. Thanks, Adam. So, hey, my name is Scott Shearin. I'm the founder and CEO of a boutique recruiting firm focused solely on military veterans. So I spent 13 years in the military myself, Mustang officer for anybody that might happen to know what that is. So we've been around about 8 years, primarily in the manufacturing, engineering, IT sectors. We've recruited for just about everything you can imagine. Because like all the other entrepreneurs, I don't turn down business when it comes my way. So we've recruited just about everything from hourly to C-suite. So that's where we spend our time. I'm also managing a startup in the HR tech recruiting space, not veteran focused, more in the general market. So by myself and 6 other partners on that. So that's what I do every day. And Chirag found me as well. So we had a conversation. I haven't been able to join you on your Thursday meetings. I apologize about that. I'm on Eastern time. I'm in Ohio. So when that rolls around, that's 7 o'clock my time. I'm cooking dinner. We have littles, and puppies, and I'm very busy at 7 o'clock. So. And by the way, if you see me distracted, I apologize. We do have another new puppy and one that just got groomed, so they're down here at my feet, and I'm trying to keep them, satiated and
it's a dog and family friendly show, Scott. All good.
Perfect. And just like the recruiting business, we have 4-pound dogs and 130-pound dogs. So everything awesome. In between. So.
And I guess, as they say, probably nobody says it, but I'll just say we saved the Adam for last. Adam.
Hey guys, Adam Nager coming to you from Orlando, Florida, and serial entrepreneur in healthcare. Currently owns 7 companies, all in the back office space of helping physicians and entrepreneurs nationwide with their offices and practices. And a pleasure to be here with you guys. Scott, appreciate your service, and I'm excited to learn about everybody's chapters. So
awesome. And for those that have been listening to the podcast for a while, you may have heard me talk about Jeff, right? And I talk about Jeff, who's running our publishing division. We brought him on as the director of publishing, and he's been spearheading volume 6. This will be his first edition with the company. Looking forward to many, many more in the future. And also, Jeff this is also the first chapter that he's written, or the first book of ours that he's been featured in at Mission Matters as well, becoming a published author. So Jeff, introduce yourself and welcome. This is your first project with us as well. So excited about this.
Yes, thank you, Adam. And it's been a life-changing experience joining the Mission Matters family. I feel just super inspired to be the new director of publishing. I believe in the company and the founders and the brand and the books to no extreme. And having the opportunity to work with all the authors has been super fun. Like I've said to you a number of times, it's fun to be teachable again. Every time I interact with one of them, I learn something new. And writing my story on a biotech company I've had with my father over the last 15 years was an amazing experience as well. So thanks for having me.
It's awesome. So I want this. So this interview will be, or this won't be a one-on-one interview, as I mentioned before. I like to think of this more as a fireside chat. So some of the questions I'm going to throw out there, they've just been on my mind. I know why we as a company do what we do. I know our goal to really get individuals' messages out there and to amplify their missions. Like that's what we do. But I'm always curious and interested to hear from the authors that participate. Like, what was some of the inspiration that went into you writing your chapter, or you coming up with your writing and your work? So again, I'm going to throw that in the middle of the table, and whoever wants to pick it up first and run with it, feel free to.
I'll start. I work in healthcare, and it's been a pandemic, and I was really struck, both professionally and personally, how quickly the tide turned against healthcare professionals. We went from hailing them as national heroes, doing discounts and freebies, and people were doing car parades by hospitals. We couldn't do enough to rightfully so their work. And then almost overnight, when the vaccines rolled out, they and other people who work in healthcare became public enemy number one. And without getting into any political details on the vaccines, I was really struck by how quickly that happened, and how people then became so hesitant to communicate on the healthcare issues. And I work with a lot of rural hospital clients, and as hospital CEOs, they were really struck by overnight, again, people will show up and flood their board meetings. These are hospital board meetings that nobody ever attends. They're boring, they're financial, nobody comes to these things. And then vaccines and ivermectin and all the COVID conspiracy theories start flooding the airwaves and social media channels, and people got very fired up with what they thought was knowledge and what they thought was information. And science and wisdom, and were showing up at hospital board meetings to demand to know, why they were being required to get vaccinated against COVID. And all of that came together with really feeling the need to make clear that every leader of every healthcare organization has a deep obligation to communicate, no matter how difficult or complex the healthcare issue. Because if we don't, that space gets filled, that void gets filled with much less informed, much louder, much less thoughtful voices. So that's why I chose to write this chapter, that this phenomenon is not unique to COVID or unique to the pandemic, of course, but it's just 10 times worse, I think, now than it was before.
It's awesome. And just a quick housekeeping note for everybody. So that was Stephanie that just spoke. And I'm speaking more so for our podcast listeners. Obviously, those that are watching us live can see who's speaking and can read the names. But when you speak, maybe just announce your name when I put the question out there if I don't address it. And then also, if we can put our mic on mute, maybe when we're not talking, just so that we can I just hear a little bit of feedback, and I want to just be aware for our podcast listeners as well. So who'd like to share next? So what's one of the reasons why you came up with your topic, please?
Yeah, so this is Adam Nager, and for me it was breaking through resistance by identifying how and why you would be persistent. And for me, as a young entrepreneur, when I first got started in my first business, it was all about how I could connect with my audience. And back then, it was one way was showing them that I wanted to be a part of their lives and help them and support them in any way, shape, or form that I could. And I believe it's important for entrepreneurs, which we all are, to be resistant, to be persistent, to break down that resistance that so many people have. And if you don't get a hold, as an example in sales, whether we're calling into a medical practice or a potential new client, if I don't get them on the phone the first time, many companies out there, many sales folks out there will just drop it and will let something else come onto their table. We'll let something else come into their life, distract them. I call them squirrels. A squirrel will happen, and all of a sudden you're darting out different ways. And what I found to be allow me to be as successful as I've grown with 7 businesses today, millions of dollars in annual revenue, is to just be persistent in everything that I do, personal life and in business. My son, who's 8 years old now, is very persistent with me too. If he wants something, he's very persistent in asking daddy for it. And he breaks down the resistance many times. But I wanted to share that story because a lot of people, in my experience, helping entrepreneurs as I do nationwide, I've found that the entrepreneurs will get a no, as an example, or not get the answer that they're looking for, not get an answer at all, and then just kind of let it fall apart and let the relationship, opportunity, et cetera, just fall apart. And persistence does pay off. I promise you, persistence does pay off. It's the reason why I'm sitting here today. So that, for me, that's the answer. So.
Anyone else care to share?
I'll go next if you want.
Yeah.
So when I was asked to participate in writing the book, which I was honored to be asked, we're an accounting firm, so it's hard to think about what would be interesting about accounting to write as a chapter in a book. But I was just finishing up with a client.
Jim, it's tax season. What are you talking about? It's tax season. What are you talking? What could be more interesting? We're recording this on April 6th. Come on.
Like debits and credits. Very, very boring. But I was just finishing up a meeting with a client reviewing how they did the prior year, last year, 2021. And he told me that the one thing that really had changed, because we had improved the accounting so much, that he was able to hold his team accountable for results, because there was not a lot of discussion about whether the numbers were correct when he got the team in the room and started talking about how they were doing on their goals. And so I thought about and he said, you should patent that, Jim. Accountability and accounting, they go together. So my chapter's around how you can't really have great accountability in a business without great accounting. And so it was kind of fun to do that. And
awesome.
Thanks for letting me participate.
Absolutely, Jim. Demetra, who's next? Come on, Arnold. There's a lot of people that haven't gone yet. This is just like school. I'll start calling on people. I'm not scared.
I'll go next. For me, I'm very passionate about inventing, and my grandfather invented one of the first potato planters back in 1917. So kind of to honor my grandfather, I've always been passionate about inventing, and I own a manufacturing company, and my son, when he was 12, wanted a go-kart, quick story, and said, if you want a go-kart, you better figure out how to pay for it, and brought home a piece of scrap, and that piece of scrap turned into a big portion of our business years later. And so you never know where ideas come from. And that's where I really believe everybody's an entrepreneur in their own way, or an inventor. And so I'm passionate about trying to support others and, take that small idea and turn it into something, whether it's, a product or a thing, or just changing something within your life. So it's something I enjoy doing, and the creative side of my business is what I like. I don't necessarily like all the accounting side. I am an accountant by trade, but I do enjoy the creative side of manufacturing, and that's what I'm kind of focusing on, in this chapter. So I'm honored to be a part of this book.
That's great. It's great stuff. All right. Who's left here? I feel like we got some. Demetra, there she is.
Yeah, this is Demetra. I think for me, my inspiration just comes from my passion for what I do. As cheesy as it sounds, I make career dreams come true. So I think the idea that if I can share my story of how I reached this level of success, the fact that I am first generation and the only one in my family to have a degree. You grow up sometimes thinking that success is typically given to those who grew up, with a silver spoon, or who were more privileged. And my hope is that my story can just even inspire just one person who has an idea, who, is in a very competitive type of job. And as long as you do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, you will reach your success. Everyone is capable of reaching their potential, and sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I've read your work, and obviously before we published it, and I know it's going to inspire more than one person. I was inspired by it, and I know that many more will be. So excited to also do our deep dive interview to get further into the content. All right. I know we're missing a couple here still. So who wants to go next?
I'll jump in real quick.
All right.
by the way, I've read your story as well, and I'm inspired. It's touching, and it shows, it really shows that anything's possible, which I think is a great theme. The purpose for me writing the book was really about legacy. So my dad and I have had this project for 15 years, and we've been so focused on the work that we never kind of talked about the narrative. And we're always, we're all goal focused, right? So it's like there's always some other thing that needs to be accomplished, and until you get to the finish line, there's no celebration. So, when you're playing in the biotech space and you're trying to create an oncology drug and you're trying to change a paradigm, the chances for success are, slim and sometimes none. So it started to become clear to me that we needed to, at least him and I, celebrate the journey, and to kind of get it on paper. And it was a cathartic experience for both of us. And surprisingly, a bunch of lessons came out of it, which were kind of a benefit. So I think the interesting thing about the process is there's always going to be some surprises. When I talk to authors, there's always something that came out of it that they didn't expect.
It's awesome. Yeah. And I always say that, every single book that I've read, one of my dreams, just my personal dreams in this whole mission of publishing and helping authors become published is, growing up, I was a reader. I still am a reader. But I always thought that it'd be really cool to get other people's stories out there and to help and to spread them so that other people could benefit from them. Because I know growing up, the idea of mentors and mentorship, my mentors were mostly in books. Like that was my style of learning. I know not for everybody, when it comes to mentors or mentorship, everybody has different ways of learning, whether it's video, whether it's books, podcasts, talking one-on-one with somebody. That's obviously that's another form of mentorship. But I'd be curious to find out, and wait a minute, before I ask the question, did I miss anybody? I don't think, did I?
Well, technically, I guess you missed me, but no.
Let's. Oh, yeah. Well, before I go on, yeah, Scott, please.
No, my name's Scott Shearin. So, I guess I'm obviously very passionate about the mission that my company has and facilitates with respect to veteran hiring. I fell into the recruiting industry about 18 years ago without even knowing that recruiting was a profession. I had no clue. So I was just a sales guy. I like to talk. I never shut up. So I ended up with the Sarah Lee organization up in Chicago, ended up becoming the head of talent acquisition globally. And again, not because I'm some sort of talented recruiter. I was just a sales guy on an HR team. So, every time they were like, hey, we need somebody to stand up on stage and give a presentation to the entire company about talent acquisition, I'm just the only idiot that would raise his hand every time. So then, of course, the CEO knows me and she thinks of Scott when it comes to recruiting. And there you go. Mm-hmm. So Sarah Lee went out of business in 2012 and, kind of had an opportunity to continue on into CPG with a large baking company, Bimbo Bakeries, or get into the beer business. Sam Adams, I like beer, but I'm even more passionate about assisting veterans than either bread or beer. So ended up on our own. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And Chirag reached out. I do a lot of writing anyway, so this was kind of an easy thing for me. So, I was like, sure, there's a lot of misconceptions with respect to veteran hiring and veterans as candidates, PTSD, stuff like that. So, I put my chapter together and really writing about some of those issues. And it was a lot of fun. So it was really, for me, it was just more about having an opportunity to, convey that message. And if some marketing comes of it, that's awesome. But if not, I have more clients than I can handle right now. So, I didn't really do this to have some sort of windfall of a bunch of new business. We've got plenty of business. So, especially in this market right now, there's just not a lot of people around the country that want to work right now. I don't know what that's all about, but I'll keep calling them, keep trying.
Get them, Scott. I have no doubt that you won't. You'll get them. So kind of circling back to what I was getting at. So I was just talking about the idea of what mentorships meant in my life, and a lot of the mentorship that I received through the years was really from reading. And I always like to get to the primary source. So to me, one of my privileges is that day in and day out, I get to talk to the primary source. Who's the primary source? All of you, the authors, the people that have the privilege of talking to on the podcast as well. That to me is the primary source. That's where it all starts. So it's the people that are out there and they're making it happen in their businesses and their lives, both personal and professional. They're making it happen, and they're making their own form of history in the way that they choose to. So that being said, I'd be curious, and I'll put this one out to the floor as well, is really like, what has mentorship meant to you, like in your life? Like, how important has mentorship been?
Well, I'll start, since I'll just parlay since I was the last, I'll go first. But mentorship's been a big deal to me. I was very fortunate to have some really wonderful mentors in my life. As you guys might imagine, spending 13 years in the military, I've had a lot of folks to emulate, a lot of good examples and bad as well. So when I transitioned out, I spent 8 years enlisted in the Marine Corps, and at a break, when I said a Mustang officer, that's somebody that goes from an enlisted person to a commissioned officer. So I started out 8 years enlisted, got up to staff sergeant in the Marine Corps, took some time off, went to college, did that kind of stuff. Ended up going back as a commissioned officer for 5 years. But in that interim, this is how I found the recruiting industry, actually. I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker because, I watched Charlie Sheen in the 80s, in Wall Street. And I was like, oh, that's me. I got my degree in finance, went out, got my, Series 7, all my licenses, became a stockbroker. But it turned out that, the only way to make money in your 20s as a licensed broker is to sell life insurance. It's not until you're much older and your clients get older and they develop wealth and they start investing with you. So if you want to feed your family, you have to sell life insurance. And I'm like a really positive guy. That's not, so to spend all my evenings having conversations with people, letting them know that they are in fact going to die, and do they or do they not care about their children? After about a year of this, I was very depressed, So it was actually one of my old Marine friends, Drew Myers. He was actually a founder of a large veteran career fair company called Recruit Military. And he was one of my first clients as a stockbroker, but it was not a real client. He was just, put his arm around me and here's a couple grand to invest, Scott, good job, But I took him to a networking event, and he's the one that had this opportunity of a recruiting firm working with defense integrators out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And they were looking for a veteran who's a salesperson. And of course, that's me. And so that's how I found the recruiting industry. Like I said before, didn't even know that was a profession. Went up there, interviewed, got the job, and that was it. That was back in 2004. So, but a lot of people have played a very significant role in my life. And there are times too, where I think, am I being enough of a mentor to the people around me? Because now all of a sudden, like, I'm an old guy, and so I think about that a lot, and try to make sure that there's enough people that I'm having an impact on, hopefully in a positive way, to help them the way that so many have helped me. So.
Yeah, this is Stephanie with Groundswell. I think that's such an interesting question about mentorship, and it's something that my business partner and I have talked about. We grew up very differently. He grew up very kind of traditional, had Boy Scouts in his life, traditional mentor roles, adults he could look up to. I grew up very, very differently and had more of an experience like Scott, I think, of finding out what I didn't want to do by trying it first. So I really thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I worked with lawyers, and that quickly disabused me of any notion of practicing law myself, which I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to work for a law firm and see what it really looked like, and not just have grandiose ideas about, what it might mean to be a lawyer. So my experience is a lot more like Scott. And I think what I took away from that is, what are our obligations and responsibilities as entrepreneurs to mentor the next generation? And how do we go about doing that? And, of course, the pandemic has put a kibosh on a lot of that networking type events. And that is part of why I was inspired to write the chapter and participate in this too. As much as I encourage, cajole, and require my clients to self-promote and do communications, too often, we are like the cobbler's kids, who have no shoes. We don't do it ourselves. And so really putting that out there as a first, kind of shot across the bow to kind of say, okay, here's my story and here's why I think you should, write and communicate, and then see where that can lead for helping the next generation.
It's awesome. I love that saying, by the way, the cobbler's kids with no shoes. Whenever I hear about this, so my dad he owned an auto body shop growing up, and I always think about it this way: like if I was one of those cobblers, I'd be saying, "Hey, Dad, you better get me some shoes." Number one, why do all your clients? And I always think about my dad and like working on cars and things like that. You better believe I wanted my muscle car, whatever else it was, and wouldn't stop bugging until I got it right. I'm like,
You
no,
were persistent, like Adam's kid.
Yeah.
Well, which I also wanted to piggyback on, if you don't mind, real quick. I was so
Please.
struck by that persistence. And again, like we are constantly telling our clients, you can't communicate just one time. You know, that means you've told one person, and somebody used the phrase, and I wrote it down, and it might have been, it was Jeff, the noisy world we live in. This is a really noisy world. You cannot possibly hope to communicate something one time to one person and think that that's stuck. It's being persistent. We say frequent and repetitious, but I think that's the same deal as Adam was saying about being persistent. That's the only way to be successful, whether it's getting a sale or getting your message to stick.
It's great. So lot of different ways to tell a story, right? I mean, with social media, Facebook Live, social media, YouTube, video, podcasts. Now, I may sound as a self-interested publisher who wants to sell books, and yes, I do. So everybody that's watching this, you could definitely pick up a copy of our latest release, and I want everybody to do that, of course. But I don't know. To me, like, and again, it might be going back to childhood and the idea that I always liked books growing up. I mean, that's how I used to get my allowance. So most kids had to maybe do some chores or things like that, and then that's how they got to earn their allowance. Well, I had to do the chores, but that was just part of being part of the family, I was told. But if I wanted allowance, I had to read books and write book reports on them. So I don't know. I just have this affinity to books, to paper, to hearing the sound, to sitting down with a book with a nice cup of coffee or tea. So to the authors out here, I mean, why books? A lot of different ways you can tell your story. Why are books important?
I think for me, once it's in print, it's there. It's
Yeah.
a permanent thing. It's something that is tangible. You can hold it in your hands. And for me, that's what I was looking for. So when somebody reached out to me, I was all in. It was the opportunity. I'm online, I'm on social and all that kind of stuff. You can Google me. But for me, it was something tangible that I could hold in my hands. So it's like getting published in a magazine, you know, but even better because you're telling a story behind it for me personally. So
yeah, it's real. It just feels good.
It's real. It feels good. It smells good. It feels good. It looks good.
It does smell good.
It hopefully reads good, you know.
Yeah,
Who else?
This is Stephanie. I think for me, it's the opportunity to revise and edit and be thoughtful. You know, too often I think with social and, you know, I tend to talk out loud. I tend to think out loud, and that's not the most thoughtful way of getting your point across. Whereas if you sit down to write something, the opportunity to revise, revisit, edit, think through something, we don't get enough of those opportunities, I think, in the world.
Yeah, I think stories, I'd tack on what Adam said, stories is what really inspires us, either it's as kids or telling, you know, stories later on in life, but it's a way to document a moment or time or inspire others. Just a question for Adam. I mean, have you thought about doing an audio book style of this? You know, I think the human voice really adding to a story really adds, you know, and me, I love audiobooks. I can't get enough of them, but just curious if you've ever thought about audioing this.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things. So let's hint, director of publishing over there. That's one of the things that's on our agenda as we kind of as this evolves. So one of the other things that are on the agenda that we never did in the past, really, this particular book does have a copy of it. Oh, and here's another first. So this book does have an ebook version as well that people can use as well. We never did that in the past. And so the next iteration, if you will, we're first on the agenda is to go back into the catalog, and we're going to, update the entire catalog, all the other versions into ebooks. And then I think in, 2023, on the agenda for 2023 is going to be really taking a deep dive into what it would look like to do the audiobook version of this. So one step at a time, but we want to put it that way. Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah, and maybe we can convince Adam to read the book for us since he's
no, this was going to be how do I get the least amount of work. I'm like, if we can get the authors, can we ship them a briefcase?
Yeah,
and then
everyone can read their own stories. I love that.
like that's why, and that's the logistics and the complicated part of it. So that's where it becomes a little bit interesting, and how it looks. So it's tricky, but it's not impossible. And I think it's just gonna do more for everybody in terms of what our goals all are here, which is to get the stories out so that people can benefit from them. Right? If they're not hearing them, they're not reading them, they're not listening to them, then nobody benefits. So we definitely want to make sure to get it in as many people's hands as possible. But yeah, I'm in soon enough, a little bit of time.
I wanted to jump in just on your last thought, Adam, in terms of why a book, and why something that seemingly feels antiquated in our ever digitized world, right? It's like, why have we circled back to a form of media that was once prominent? And it's interesting because it's, I think, more effective, and I think you guys have touched on it. It's important, you write it, it's permanent, right? So when you write it, you put such an extra amount of thought into it. You pay attention to the word, like in the world we are living in that's so fast moving now. We don't have time to figure out word choice, and grammar's gone to the side, and sentences, whatever. And it's just it's just messy. It's not only noisy, but the world's messy. Yeah. And I think there's something about permanent and thought. And I can say this was a communications exercise for my father and I, because we realized that a lot of even the terminology that we'd been using for our communication strategy was in a vacuum, because when people outside of our circle started reading it, they started asking, what does that mean? And you use terminology and thought process within your own environment so often that it starts to sound like it makes sense. And you don't realize maybe that outside of your circle, that communications maybe needs to be thought out. When it comes to oncology, we had to water a lot of it down. And we've actually adopted a lot of the terminology that we discovered in the writing process into some of our communications now. But yeah, it lives forever, right? It has no shelf life in a world where like a deck is changing every other day and is never actually gets printed. Yeah, I know there's a part of it that's nostalgia, but it also, I think it has a more important place in today's world than it ever did.
Yeah, Jeff, I would agree with that. And it's funny that you use the word antiquated, because I was kind of thinking that, writing and printing, especially for just 8 individuals like us, is actually a stage of innovation that is really fairly new to the human experience. So, I mean, it's only been I don't know, 600 years since the printing press was invented. And how many years has it been since the majority of any given population is literate in writing? So, I mean, writing and putting those words into permanence is something that I think all of us having this human experience when we are, is something that we all take for granted. You know, and it's not something that should be taken for granted, quite frankly. It's something much more serious and much more powerful and much more moving than almost anything else. So.
Oh, I totally agree. And one of the interesting things, like just looking on the back end, and it's still, I mean, to this day, it just blows my mind. Obviously, Amazon ships everywhere, and I understand the logistics of you can order anything pretty much anywhere. But when I look at the reports or see something else, and I see, books being shipped to other countries, or where a purchase was made or something else, and then I think about like the authors, and I think about their stories and their messages and the different communities that we may or may not ever connect with, that are reading those lessons and that are learning from those stories. And I mean, every time I see it, I mean, my mind's just blown away by it. And it's just fun. It's just fun to think about how this shared experience can work and how we can all be connected by something as, whether we look at it as innovative, antiquated, however we look at it, but something like a book. I think it's awesome. Anybody else want to pick up on that question? If not, we can move on. Just want to make sure we're good. I don't want to shut anybody out. All right. So the goal of today, really, and of this book release launch party celebration was really to give a teaser to our audience to let them know that a upcoming series is happening. Every one of the authors that you've heard from today will be featured in a full interview of their own, and we'll be doing a deep dive into their writing. But I wanted to bring everybody on for one quick episode, just so that you could see how awesome everyone is. I want to go through one by one and give everybody an opportunity to state your name one more time. And if the audience wants to follow up and connect or visit your website or learn more, leave the web address or what the best place is for them to do that as well. And then we will also put all of that information in the show notes. So those that are listening to this driving can just go check it out later and click on the link and follow up. So maybe if we want to start with Demetra, and can we keep the same order as the intro? I don't know. I don't remember it, but let's start with Demetra.
Yeah, so again, this is Demetra Bakas, Madison Street Search. You can find me at my website, madisonstreetsearch.com, or Demetra at madisonstreetsearch.com. LinkedIn is where I play the majority of my day, along with Twitter, Facebook, you name it. But if you ping me, you'll hear from me.
Awesome. And Stephanie, please.
Yeah, Stephanie Lim, senior partner at Groundswell Health. The website is ourgroundswell.com, and email is the best way to reach me at stephanie@ourgroundswell.com.
Jim, please.
Hi, I'm Jim Downs. I'm the founder of Blueprint CFO, and you'll find me on the website, www.blueprintcfo.com, where you'll find lots of case studies of how we help clients use their accounting to improve their business performance. Thank you.
Fantastic. And Arnold, please.
Hi, Arnold Volker, founder of Inventor U. You can find me on inventor-u.com on website or Facebook. So that's the easiest way to reach out to me.
Scott.
Scott Shearin, founder and CEO of Veteran Talent. You can find us at veterantalent.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there every day. So,
all right, and Adam.
Adam Nager, and President CEO of Quest National Services and Quest Consulting Services and several other businesses in healthcare. The easiest way to find me is online at adamnager.com. And you can also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And Jeff.
Thanks, Adam, and thanks to all the authors today. Jeff Norskog, the Director of Publishing at Mission Matters. If you want to find me, my email, jeff@missionmatters.com. If you're interested in being an author in a future book, reach out. Send me your story. Send me your contact information, jeff@missionmatters.com. Thanks for everybody being here today. This has been a wonderful experience.
Fantastic. And for the audience, again, we'll put all that information in the show notes so that you can just click on it and head right on over, check out the different sites. And if this is your first time with Mission Matters, we're a platform that's all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and having them share their mission, why they do what they do, like what motivates them, what gets them excited to go out there and to make a difference. If that's the type of content that sounds interesting or fun or engaging to you, we welcome you. Again, hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And we'll also be putting a link to that book that we've been talking about today. So Mission Matters, Volume 6 of our business Leaders Edition best-selling series. Definitely want you to pick up a copy of that. If you like paper like myself, pick up the paperback, but the ebook's there too as well. So definitely grab a copy of that. Much appreciated, and have a great rest of your day. And to the authors again, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to do the deep dive with each and every one of you and do our longer form interview. And again, congrats on becoming an author.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, guys.
Buddy.
Thanks,
Bye.
Adam.